Hey guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, The Bright Side Girl, and today we're going to be doing a summer reading wrap up. So these are going to be all the books that I read in June and July that were not part of readathons. We did not have a readathon in June, so I have a full month's worth of books to share with you. And then in July we did Mermaid Marathon. There's still a couple days left in July, but I'm getting ready to go out of town, so I wanted to film this before I left. So we will add anything that I finish these last couple days into my August reading wrap up. I only finished one book in July that I didn't read for Mermaid Marathon. I will link my Mermaid Marathon reading wrap up, which is essentially the first 2 weeks of July, up in the cards for you guys, so be sure and check it out. I read a ton of mermaid, pirate, ocean themed books and we had a really great time. So for now, we're gonna jump into these books. We're gonna go in order of least favorite to favorite books, leaving out the ones I read for Mermaid Marathon, and we're just gonna get started. So for June, I had kind of like a boat book month. I read a ton of boat themed books, ocean themed books. I wanted to read these because I wanted to specifically read like mermaid and pirate centered books for Mermaid Marathon, but I was still in like a summery mood and I wanted to read like these nautical reads. So one of the ones I read was Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. I read a book from Catherine Steadman in January that was kind of Christmas, Krampus, winter themed. She mostly writes thrillers slash mysteries. That one was really wild and over the top and kind of silly, but I had such a good time with it. I really love the audiobook. Catherine narrates her own audiobooks. She is an actress. Apparently she was on Downton Abbey, and I just had a great time with it. So I wanted to read this like summer looking fabulousness. So this one is about a couple that is newly engaged and they wind up having their honeymoon, I believe in Fiji, and then they find something in the water that kind of changes everything about their relationship and what they're going to do moving forward. I don't want to say too much more because it will kind of give things away. I will let you know that this one does not have the summer vibes that we are looking for. Them going to Fiji and having their honeymoon is such a small portion of the book. I was hoping that the thing that they found in the water would be a little bit more like ocean centric, and it is not. This is really more of kind of like a almost detective style mystery, and for that reason my enjoyment level of it went down, which is not entirely the book's fault. I just was expecting something different going into it. I also didn't particularly love the plot twist. It felt like kind of slow at times. I was enjoying it because her narration is really good and her writing is like fun to read, but it just wasn't exactly what I wanted with these kind of summer tropical vibes. And then I just didn't love like the overall plot of the book. It was really more of like a detective style kind of mystery. For that reason, I gave it a 3-star. Next, I did Lying in the Deep by Diana Urban. So this one I was very excited to get to. This one would be a good one for spooky season or summerween. In this one, we're following Jade. She has just been jilted by her ex-boyfriend who left her for her best friend. She feels very betrayed and upset, and she goes to set sail on this cruise ship that is going to be gone for 11 months and embark on 4 different countries. This is a luxury campus style cruise ship, so we kind of have like a school at sea, and when she gets there she finds that her boyfriend and best friend are also going to be joining, and she is very upset. Her obsession with them kind of grows and festers, and eventually there is a murder on the cruise ship that people have to start investigating, so things kind of take a twisted turn. I enjoyed this one. I didn't love it quite as much as I was expecting to based on the synopsis and everything. I did really enjoy the narrator for it. I did it on audio. I liked listening to this one while I did like a walk on the beach, and I just had like a summery fun time with it. I liked the characters. Definitely more of like a school setting YA book. We've got some cattiness with the girls and some kind of drama and things. It's a very fun read, and I did like the overall like ending of the plot. It was kind of unexpected. I wouldn't say this one was like scary, but it does have a little bit of goriness to it, like a tiny bit. And overall I had a good time. If you're looking for a boat read, a summerween read, this is a good one. Again, I gave it like a 3.5. Next, we have The Last One by Will Dean. These all kind of fall around the same spot. This one has an extremely fun premise and a very good nautical atmosphere about it. This is an adult thriller. So Kaz is going on a cruise for the RMS Atlantica. She's going on this cruise with her new love Pete, and it's the adventure of a lifetime. They're gonna eat, dance, shop, make new friends, but when Kat wakes up the next morning, Pete is missing. When she starts to walk around the cruise ship, she realizes that all the cabin doors are open and that everyone else is gone as well. So we have this mystery why she is on this like cruise ship by herself. I can't say too much more. It would give things away. This one was really wild. I really liked the twist. It was not what I expected it to be at all. I enjoyed it, but it was definitely like a suspend your belief, like kind of outrageous plot. So if you like those kind of like wacky fun reads, I do think that the atmosphere was pretty good as far as being on the ship, but it wasn't overly like a summery nautical type read. We do have a little bit of intense things that happen in here, but nothing scary. Overall, it was just kind of silly and fun. The narrator for this one was decent as well, and I had a good time with it overall, so I gave it a 3.5. Okay, next I want to include this in here because I read it for a hike-a-thon, but I didn't finish it until June, and I didn't like do an official wrap-up. So that would be In the Lives of Puppets. I have such mixed feelings on this book. This is an adult kind of like cozy sci-fi read, and it is a loose retelling of Pinocchio, which I really liked that part. This was my first TJ Klune book. I was so excited because I have this beautiful Fairy Loot edition, and it has like these robots living in the woods. This one's also inspired by Swiss Family Robinson. So we are following this human named Victor who lives in the woods with 3 robots. There is a pleasantly sadistic nurse machine, a vacuum robot that needs a lot of love and attention, and a fatherly figure named Giovanni Lawson. When Victor one day discovers another android called Hap and brings him to life, he realizes that Hap and Giovanni have a dark and similar past, and he kind of uncovers things about their world. I really loved the forest setting in this one, and the robots and the family aspect. I was really hoping the book would focus mostly on that part, but at some point we do kind of leave that wildernessy vibe, and it does have more of like a sci-fi element to it. The twist in here I didn't expect, and I really enjoyed. I really liked the family. I thought the characters were written really well, and I thought it was really fun. The thing that kept this from being like a 5-star for me, to be honest, was that it was just kind of silly, and not necessarily in the way that I like. We refer a lot to genitalia in here, and the robots make a lot of jokes about genitalia, and it just kind of threw me out of the book because it kind of feels almost like a middle grade with how silly the robots are and the writing style is, and like how cozy and goofy it is. And then they would like talk about genitalia and mention a few things about sex, and it is an adult read, but it just didn't feel like they meshed well together. I just didn't really love the humor of those kinds of sections in here. That part kind of kept it from it being a 5-star for me, and it was just a little bit too long. So I feel like this is going to be one that people are going to love or hate. The audiobook narrator was good, but again, it has like a very silly young feel to it, especially with the audiobook narrator. So I'm hesitant to recommend this one to everyone just because I feel like some people are really going to dislike it and others are going to like absolutely adore it. The ending was really, really good. I liked the setting overall. So it was just really kind of a unique read. It's probably more of a 4-star, but I'm going to give it like a 3.75. Next we have Blackheart by Nicole Casterman. This is one that I did not finish in time for my Mermaid Marathon wrap-up, so we're going to talk about it here. This is the only physical book that I read for July, and for June I have had a terrible physical reading month. I have a couple that I'm almost finished with, so we're doing okay. This one I read because I assumed it was going to be super piratey, and this is a backstory on Blackbeard. So we're getting like the story of Blackbeard like in his youth, the famous pirate. Again, I really enjoyed the writing in here, and as a book I enjoyed the story. There's a cute little YA romance in here. It's a little bit angsty, a little bit fun. We're following Anne. She's basically an orphan. She goes to become a maid for this rich family that takes her in. She is of mixed race. Her mother is from, I believe, Curacao, and she has always wished to go there and visit and discover more about her people. She's a little bit looked down upon in society for being mixed race, and she's kind of dreamed about like setting sail and going off to sea. One day the owner of the manor's son comes back. He is very like snarky and feisty, and he has just gotten off of a ship, and they kind of have a little bit of like a hate to love romance going on. So I really enjoyed the romance. I like the writing. I like the story. My only qualm with this one is, again, this was not very piratey. Like, we only mentioned piracy briefly in like the 280 page mark, and then there is like no setting sail on a ship at all until the very, very end. One of the main characters does like return from sailing at sea, but it's not going to be this nautical, piratey, swashbuckling adventure you're looking for. This is a duology, so I believe the second book is going to be more that way based on the ending of this one and the overall plot. I know the authors don't always have control over the cover and sometimes not even the title of the book, but I felt like it was a tiny bit misleading. Like, we are following the character that eventually becomes Blackbeard. I just wish it would have been a little less of a piratey vibe because it's not that way in this book. It probably is going to be in the second one. So if you're looking for a super swashbuckling, piratey fun time, this is probably not the choice for you. It is still a good one and I did enjoy it. So again, like a 3.75. Next, I listened to Poor Unfortunate Souls by Serena Valentino. This is book number 3 in the Disney Villains series. These are very short, almost novella novella style young adult books. They all follow different Disney villains. The first one is Snow White, the second one is Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and the third one is Ursula. There are 11 books in total, so I'm working my way through the series this year. I have read these first 3 before, so this was a reread for me so that I could jump into the 4th book for Retoldathon, which is my upcoming retelling themed readathon. These books, while they do follow different villains and stories, they do tie together. There are characters in here that are not in the movies. The plots are different. We're mostly focused on like their younger years, and there's characters that come through all of the different books and tie kind of everything together so far. So I highly recommend reading them in order. I do not consider these standalones. I enjoyed this one. I liked all of these better upon rereading them. I really love the narrator. She does a fabulous job. They're very short. They're only like 4 hours on audiobook, so you can get through them like super quickly. And if you like Disney movies and things, I do recommend this one. They do have a slightly more mature vibe about them than some of the other Disney books. They are a little bit darker, a little bit grittier, which I kind of enjoyed, and I'm really having a good time with them so far. So this one was a 4-star. Okay, next up I listened to Dragon Fruit. This was the only audiobook I completed in July that was not part of Mermaid Marathon. I wish it had been a part of Mermaid Marathon because it does have some piratey-ness to it, which I was not expecting. This is a new release for 2024. I'm doing pretty good. I try to read at least one new release every month, and I think I'm already at like 9, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule. This is one I was very excited for. It just looked so awesome. This is a young adult standalone, and this one is inspired by Pacific Island mythology, which I love. I'm going to read you the synopsis just so I give you like a full description. In the old tales, it is written that the egg of a sea dragon fruit holds within it the power to undo a person's greatest sorrow. An unwanted marriage, a painful illness, an unpaid debt, gone. As with all things that promise the moon and stars and offer hope, when hope is gone, the tale comes with a warning. Every wish demands a price. Hanalei of Tamarind is the cherished daughter of an old island family, but when her father steals a sea dragon egg meant for an ailing princess, she is forced into a life of exile. In the years that follow, Hanalei finds solace in studying the majestic sea dragons that roam Naminomi Sea until one day an encounter with a female dragon offers her what she desires most, a chance to return home and to right a terrible wrong. I loved this. I thought it was so good. We had some piratey nautical adventures. This was like the perfect summer fantasy. It was very easy to follow. It was very short and quick, but not rushed. We have so many fun creatures in here. It was so fun with the sea dragons. There's a really adorable bat. There's even a clever spider, which I'm not a spider person, but the way they were written were just so fun. I just loved reading about the different creatures, and they were different than the ones you normally read about, especially the bat. The bat was so cute. And I really liked the little bit of the romance in here. I loved the island mythology. It was very like whimsical and really fun. I just had a great time. It was just such a good like island adventure story. So I really liked the narrator for this one as well. She was fabulous, and I gave it 4 stars. Next, I did another new release, and that was Into the Sunken City by Dinesh Tharu. This came out this year as well. I was so excited for it. I read this one before Mermaid Marathon, but again, it would have been perfect for Mermaid Marathon because I wasn't sure like how nautical and piratey would be, but it was super piratey, and I didn't know that it was a loose Treasure Island retelling, so this one would be good for Retoldathon also. This one also has great treasure hunting vibes. So we are in the slowly sinking city of Cocochina, Arizona, and the days are long, the money is tight, the rain never stops. For Jin Haldar, this life is nothing new ever since her father died in a diving accident. She's barely made ends meet for her and her younger sister Thara. Enter Bahili, a drifter who offers Jin and Thahara the score of a lifetime, a massive stash of gold hidden in the sunken ruins of Las Vegas. So we have this really excellent treasure hunting adventure in here. Again, we have a lot of these like nautical underwater vibes. We get a little bit of an underwater city feel. Like it's not entirely that way, but a tiny bit, because they're basically underwater and there's all these circumstances they have to deal with because of that. And I just really love the Treasure Island aspect. There are these like Treasure Island coins, and it was so fun. There is a little romance in here. It's not the main focus, but it was really cute as well. This is a young adult book. Loved the narrator. She was fabulous, and another great one for summer. 4 stars. All right, next, completely different than all those other books. I read Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. This is the next one in my Throne of Glass giant buddy read that I am doing. This is technically the 2nd book, but the 3rd book if you start with Assassin's Blade, and I really enjoyed this one. I don't want to go too into depth because I'm going to be talking about them a lot like over the course of the year as I'm reading through them. Basically, our main character is an assassin. We're in this like high fantasy world, and we have all these different characters. We've got got a little bit of like a Game of Thrones, Shadow and Bone, like fantasy, traditional kind of fantasy vibe, but with their own unique characters and story. Again, I don't want to say too much because this is a sequel, but I enjoyed this one the most so far. I am currently almost done with Heir of Fire. I tried to finish it before the video, but I didn't get it done because it's a little longer. They get longer and longer as the series goes on. I did enjoy this one quite a bit because we were already like fully immersed in the world and the characters understood what was happening. There were like lots of twists and turns and gut-wrenching moments and strong character moments, so this one was a 4-star for me. I'm enjoying the narrator also. And lastly, I had 3 5-stars. They were all in June and I was so excited about it. So we're going to talk about Ruthless Vows. I need to get a copy of this book. So this is the second in the Divine Rivals duology. I reread Divine Rivals in order to prep for this book. I'm so glad I did because there were so many things that I forgot. This is set in kind of like a fantasy World War II style setting. We're following this war between the gods. We're following Iris and Rowan as they write these kind of magical letters back to each other. Iris doesn't know that she's writing to Rowan, and it's got a little bit of like a You've Got Mail situation. We've got like a magical typewriter. We've got this impending war going on. Iris's brother is off at war and she's like worried about him and trying to like write to him. And it's really more of a love story. I was really invested in the world in Divine Rivals because it was so interesting. First book is mostly about the characters and them kind of slowly falling in love. It's definitely like a slow burn read. This is a young adult duology, clean romance. It is one of the sweetest romances that I've read in a long time. The characters are extremely lovable. Just know going into it that it is a slower burn and it is more character driven. However, with Ruthless Vows, we dive more into the world. We get a little bit more action, a little bit more from the politics and the war and the gods, and I was fascinated and loved it. It's so funny because I had one friend that loved Divine Rivals and didn't love Ruthless Vows, and one that was the opposite, and it's because there is so much more world building in this second book. Nothing too hard to follow, but there's a little bit less with the characters and a little bit more with the world building, which I personally enjoyed because I found the world so fascinating, but we still got to read about awesome characters. It's just filled with romance and magic, and it's just so beautifully written and one of my new favorite duologies now. Narrator is great, 5 stars. All right, I'm torn about what my favorite one is, but we're going to talk about Dark Matter next. So I read Dark Matter via audiobook because I wanted to watch the TV show, and of course I have not watched the TV show yet, but I heard it's incredible. My mom loved it and I felt like she was going to spoil it for me, so I wanted to read the book really quickly because she was loving it, which really surprised me. So I actually tried to read this one years ago when I would like try to read things with Jeff, and we haven't read a book together in a little bit via audiobook, and I remember liking the narrator, and this was like one of the first kind of like mystery type thriller books that I had read. In the beginning part of the book, our main character is like kidnapped and like kind of beaten up like a little bit, and I got scared that it was going to be like too intense or dark. And this was before I had like known that I was okay with a little bit of darkness, and I literally stopped the audiobook right before the good part because when I reread it, I got to that part, and then the twist comes right after about what's happening, and it is 100% right up my alley, and I absolutely loved it. So Jason Dessen is walking home through the chilly Chicago streets one night, looking forward to a quiet evening in front of the fireplace with his wife Daniela and their son Charlie, when his reality shatters. Are you happy with your life? Those are the last words Jason Dessen hears before the masked abductor knocks him unconscious. Before he awakens, finding himself strapped to a gurney, surrounded by strangers in hazmat suits. And a man Jason has never met smiles down on him. Welcome back, Jason. So I don't want to say too much more, even though there's more in the synopsis, but you're basically following him, and he wakes up and his life is completely different, and you're kind of figuring out why. The reason why is great. I absolutely loved it. It's definitely like a thriller sci-fi type of read, and I so enjoyed it. It was written so well. The pacing was so good. The characters were great. It wasn't too dark. It was action-packed, but it had a lot to do with like love and romance and marriage, and it was so good. It was just different than I expected. It was much more about kind of appreciating your life and the people in it than I was expecting, and it was just such a good one. So solid 5 stars. And lastly, I read Nemesis, which is the final book in the Diabolical trilogy that has taken me by surprise. I read the first book of this for Galaxy-a-thon, and then I read the second one, I believe, in May. It is so good, you guys. This is such an amazing sci-fi trilogy. It is way more brutal than I expected in the best way. It is a young adult trilogy, and basically we're in this world where there are diabolics, and they are like robot type creatures. People use them to kind of take care of them and kind of be a part of the family. And then they become illegal, and this one like wealthier family decides that they're going to pretend that their diabolic is human. They look and act very much like us, and then she winds up having to pretend to be her human in this galactic event that they're having because she thinks that her human might be in danger. So she goes pretending to be her human and stand in her place. For the most part, she is very cold and one-minded and brutal, and a bunch of things happen. It's a very political series, but there is an epic romance in here. It's just like rip your heart out of your chest intense. So good. I was so invested. Third book was phenomenal. It did not disappoint. Such an epic sci-fi trilogy. Not too hard to follow if you're new to sci-fi. We're in our diabolic's head for the most part for the majority of the books. So I feel like for some it might feel a little slow, but the audiobook narrator does such an amazing job. It just kept me really invested the whole time, and I was literally obsessed. Loving it. I need to get a copy of all the books. I just did not expect it to love it as much as I did. Highly recommend. Solid 5 stars. Overall, I've had a really great reading summer. Let me know how yours is going down below in the comments. I'm very excited to transition into fall soon. We only have a couple more videos that are not going to be like fall Halloween themed. Very pumped for all those kinds of reads. Very excited for Retold-a-thon, which is happening very soon also. I'll link the announcement for that down below. Let me know what your favorite read of June and July was. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Bright Side Girl if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time on The Bright Side.